eat.
Right.
And the bar was relatively crowded, and I walk up there and I see these two girls, these two women sitting at the bar, and Melissa turns around and I'm cooked. And I don't really get this way because it's one of the advantages when you have a passion like basketball.
Right.
It's harder, I think, in your life to have something make you feel that way.
Right.
Just the reality of it. And Melissa turned around, and I thought she was the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen. And she was there that night with her sister Jenny, who's married. And think about this: it's a hot Chicago summer night, and the only reason why they went to Mastro's is Jenny had a craving for French onion soup. Right? Who has a craving for French onion soup on August 24th in Chicago? And her favorite place to get French onion soup is Mastro's.
Right.
So, excuse me, I sat down at the bar. I gave about 2 seats between us, and the whole time I'm trying to figure out a way because I'm not a good opener. I'm not. And
apparently you're a good closer.
I guess. And that night I was Mariano Rivera for sure. And even though he's not a Red Sox, there's no better closer. So we just started a conversation. Melissa and Jenny both love sports, so we talked about sports. And Melissa and I had our first date the next night. We went to Lady Gaga at Wrigley Field.
Wow.
And then December 30th, I proposed. I just think when I was 40 years old. I think when you know, you know.
Right.
She's an amazing woman. She was a unnamed partner in a law firm in Chicago, and we would have not made this move if she wasn't on board.
Right.
And that's a lot. When she was to be an unnamed partner, to be a partner in a law firm in your 30s in the city of Chicago is a really big deal.
Right.
And she was more than willing. And by the way, I think I was formally announced on March 28th. 18 days prior, she'd given birth to our daughter, Emily. So it just speaks to what a remarkable woman she is. And that's why I say, and I mean it, I'd get fired 1,000 times over because she's honestly the best thing that's ever happened outside of Emily and Marin. Right. Those 3 are the greatest things ever happened. But that's how we met, and we hit it off. We were inseparable she probably thought the first month I was a little psycho because I was recruiting her.
Right.
And then I think she figured out that it wasn't just it's actually who I was.
Right.
And man, did I've said this. She hit a bunt single, and I hit a grand slam homer in the bottom of the 9th in the 7th inning of the World Series.
Tell me a little bit about your young child is 5 months old. You don't need to tell me much about her, but your older child from your first marriage is 14 and is going to join you here and be at Kansas City.
Yeah, Marin turns 14 in October, and she's going to move, and it's exciting. She just played. She plays baseball. She doesn't play softball. She loves baseball. And in Rockford, home of the Rockford Peaches from a league of their own, there's a baseball for all. It's a great thing. They do it nationally. She just spent last week for 4 days with Baseball for All. And if you're a girl who loves baseball and you want to keep playing it, please look up Baseball for All. There were girls from all around the country, Arizona, California, Florida, Texas. And we spent 5 days, and you play baseball. And it was great. And she's already made friends there that you could tell are going to be her friends for her life. Marin's she's a special kid. And it goes, it really is true. The days are long, but the years go fast.
Right.
I can't believe she's going to be 14. But she's got a heart of gold. She's a really good person. She cares for others. She hasn't, and this has been great, she hasn't found her passion yet.
Right.
She does love baseball, but she acts. She plays basketball. I think she only plays basketball because I coach it. She plays volleyball. She's just a remarkable young person. She does really well in school. She works at a restaurant on Ocracoke Island called The Pony, where she does dishes and waits tables, and she's got an incredible work ethic. Just really proud, really lucky to be her dad, and really proud to be her dad.
Talk about, before we talk about UMKC real quick as we sort of start to wind things down, what is the adjustment like for being a head coach for quite a while to going back to being an assistant?
I think it was real easy for me relative to other people because of where I went and who I went to work for. I could see where it would be a difficult adjustment, but my first year to go to Michigan, I'd never coached at that level. I'd never been in the Big Ten or a power conference.
Right.
And I grew up in Big Ten basketball. My dad had coached at that level. But I think one of the best things is no matter what, your relationships with your players as a head coach is just different, even if you don't want it to be. Because the players all know, they all understand that when you're the head coach, you're the guy putting them in and out of the game. So there's going to be a little bit of angst there. And you're the guy that calls the plays or decides what gets run for who and shot selection and all those things. When you're the assistant, you don't have that. When you're the assistant, you get some of the stories. You get to have a relationship that's just different. And I had missed that. Mm-hmm. And so, some of the relationships I got to build with some of the players, Mo Wagner, Duncan Robinson, Zach Irvin, Derek Walton, DJ Wilson, was really amazing. And I love that. And then add to the fact that I'm now going to work for a Hall of Famer, right. One of the best to ever do it in Coach Beilein. So it wasn't that hard for me. It really wasn't. And I think one of the things that Coach Beilein said to me that I really take with me is he came into my office. He just had I don't even know how he had an inkling. He came into my office one day and he said, he just sat down, just plopped right, which he's the boss. He can do whatever he wants, but he just kind of came in and sat right down and he said, Bill, he called me Bill, which very few people did. And I didn't care, but he called me Bill. I liked it, actually. I liked it when Coach called me Bill. He said, Bill, I can't imagine what you're going through, but I'm going to tell you a story, and I really believe this. And this was before we'd played a game at Michigan or Wright State had played a game. He said, I want you to understand something. If Wright State isn't successful, that means you failed. You didn't do your job. If Wright State is successful, that means you were a heck of a coach. And he said, I'm going to tell you my story. I left West Virginia. I went to Michigan. My first year at Michigan, we had a really bad year. It was tough, changing culture.
Right.
And West Virginia went to the Final Four. And he said, Coach Huggins did a remarkable job. He did a great job. But the players we left, the culture we left, the things that we had taught those guys certainly came through. And I know that's how I know I did a great job. And he sat me down and he told me that in only the way I think John Beilein could do it. And it was like, you know what, you're right. And for me, that really put me at peace, made it a lot easier to do the job at Michigan. And what an incredible person. People are going to talk about his basketball acumen, how he runs the program. But I'm just telling you, he is a remarkable man. And I think he's going to have great success in the NBA.
Then you moved on to coach with your old friend Chris Collins, and that was obviously a great experience too.
I mean, to go to Northwestern, again, a place I knew that the first one to go to the tournament, Chris did it. Didn't surprise me. He did it really quickly. He did it in 4 years. People don't realize that. It took him his fourth season. He didn't even see his first recruiting class graduate, and he was able to get Northwestern to the tournament. Really remarkable. But I felt like in order to have sustained success, we got to go again.
Right.
We got to go back-to-back years, and we were unable to do that. But I feel like the recruiting classes that we've had there, they're going to do it, and they're going to start going year after year after year. Chris is a terrific coach. It's amazing what he's accomplished in just such a short time. I mean, he's only 45 years old, and his career, his success at Duke, the multiple national titles at Duke, the amount of pros he's helped recruit. I think what the greatest compliment I can pay Chris Collins is how many times do you hear of a coach, assistant or head coach, being the best man or being a groomsman in a former player's wedding? It doesn't happen very often. J.J. Redick asked Chris Collins to stand up in his wedding, and he did. And that shows you the kind of person Chris is. His coaching speaks for itself. But again, I've been blessed between Brad Burnell, John Beilein, and Chris Collins to work for three of the guys with the most integrity in our profession. And that's where I've been really fortunate. And then I'd be remiss, the athletic director at Northwestern, Dr. Phillips, terrific. I mean, terrific. That entire department is off the charts good, as is at Michigan. Ward Manuel and his staff does a great job.
So then you get this opportunity to talk about getting the opportunity, the process. You've got a new wife, you've got a new, so there's a lot of things at play here. But maybe why UMKC? Well,
I had played here as a head coach in Sweeney against Matt Brown in the bracket buster game. So I had been to campus. I'd seen campus. I've seen Sweeney on a day, and obviously I was very familiar because I followed Coach DeVos's career here religiously back when they were. I think it was the Mid-Con originally, right?
Yes, it was the Mid-Con.
You know, when it was Valpo and Oakland and great. I mean, I coached against Greg Campy, who's a terrific coach, and obviously coached against Homer and Bryce Drew.
Right.
So, but I followed Coach Z and Ken Dempsey, his lead assistant, and
great guy,
really good person, really good coaches, and you know. I really believe if Coach Z was given more time, they would have done it.
Yeah.
You know, they would have hung a banner or two. That didn't happen, but he always felt like you could win here. So that was always in the back of my mind. And then having played here and experienced what a beautiful campus this is, and then it is really true. There aren't as many universities that give access to success like UMKC does. There's access. We have kids from over 100 countries. We have students from every state in the United States. We have one of the best business schools, the Block Business School in the United States. Our computing and engineering program is nationally ranked. Our music consortium is ranked in the world. And then never mind our grad schools, our dental school, our law school, our medical school win awards every single year. So for me, it's really important to be able to sell the academic piece, and you can. And then it's a real world education because of the diversity of the university.
Right.
And then when you look at Dr. Martin, who's a basketball guy, great player at Southern Cal, played for George Raveling, he knows what it takes. He has a great vision. I mean, he's already moved us into Summit League, which I think we would all agree was a big-time move. And to do it as quick, he got the job in December, and he's put us into Summit League 6 months later. And nothing against the WAC. The WAC's a great league. It's a well-run league. Just geographically, financially, it doesn't make any sense. Right. And, you know, I didn't know that would happen when I took the job. But again, for me, what we talked about earlier was I love being a part of a group that is the first.
Right.
And we're going to be the first to go to the NCAA tournament. And I've had great conversations with Coach Hunt. What an amazing man. His passion for UMKC is incredible. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm going to ask him to speak to our team because it just resonates.
Right.
And, you know, there's been a lot of really good coaches here. And, you know, I just saw a beautiful campus 10 minutes from one of the best cities in our country in Kansas City, blue-collar Midwestern people, which is how I grew up. No other Division I program in Kansas City.
Right.
It's a great area to recruit.
I was going to touch on that a little bit. Kansas City started, they don't do it anymore, but they used to put Kansas City area high school players and how they were doing in college basketball. And the list would extend to 40 to 50 players, none of whom were playing for UM. You know, I just remember it thinking it's just subsequent to Coach Z. There are a lot of good players here. And I think UMKC hasn't necessarily gotten as many of them as they probably should.
We have to get them. We're going to work really hard. We've lost a couple kids. We had a kid we lost the other day. He committed to another school. We lost a kid that went to Stanford, a kid that went to Georgia, and we were right there. And you want them to go to those other places and have great experiences. But if they don't,
right,
then you hope you're there for the bounce back. And I think the way you handle it when they don't choose you is really critical. Mm-hmm. You know, you can't get upset. You've got to wish them well, hope they have success. But if they don't, they got to know their home school's available to them if they choose to leave. And you're not rooting for that. But if it happens, you got to be in a position to have a chance. But between the junior colleges in Kansas, Missouri, the great high school coaching in Kansas, Missouri, you know, the great summer programs, we've got to get kids from this area. We've got to build a fortress. We can't have guys go to Loyola Chicago and lead them to the Final Four.
Right.
You know, we can't. That can't happen. And a lot of that part of it, Danny's on me as the head coach. You know, the local kids and their coaches, they want to hear from the head coach, and I've got to really do a great job there. That's on me more than it's on the assistants.
I think during your press conference you used the word grit about 14 times. I didn't count them, actually, but I was just saying, boy, you said grit a lot hearing this. So obviously you want your team to be known for their work ethic and their grit.
I do. I just think toughness rules the day. Tough teams win. And I think a basketball season, and you've heard this a million times, is a marathon, not a sprint. And I think in a marathon you run. You talked about how you run. If you're going to run a distance, you know, if you're a sprinter, you know, you don't need as much grit as if you're running a marathon. And that doesn't mean sprinters aren't talented and they need some things. But as a marathon runner, there's some grit. And a basketball season's a long one. There's going to be games where you might lose by 30. How do you recover? There's going to be games where